There are motivations for Israel and for the United States. Israel is led by Benjamin Netanyahu, who tweeted 2 days ago that this war fulfills his dream of 40 years to overthrow Iran. Netanyahu's objective is to permanently eliminate any state of Palestine and to bring down any governments in West Asia that support Palestine. And he has led wars across Africa and the Middle East for this objective since 1996, including Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Gaza, West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and now his dream, Iran. In my view, this is a malevolent, absolutely illegal, and dangerous mindset. Rather than having a state of Palestine alongside a state of Israel, which would bring peace to the world, Netanyahu is a maximalist who wants Israel to dominate the region of the Middle East. The United States has shared Israel's objective because the U.S. objective is world control, believe it or not. And Israel serves the purpose of control of the Middle East. We see that the United States has military bases all across the Gulf region, in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, in United Arab Emirates, and in many other places. It used to have bases in Iran, but it lost that when the U.S.-backed police state was overthrown in a revolution in 1979. The U.S. had brought in that police state regime in 1953 when the CIA overthrew the Iranian government. So the United States wants control of West Asia, it wants control of the Americas, it wants control of Europe, and Trump in particular wants to control the entire world oil economy. That's why he has commandeered Venezuela's oil and why he is attacking Iran as a threat to American dominance in the Middle East. So this is a project that goes a long way back. It has nothing to do with Iran's nuclear weapons because there are no nuclear weapons. The religious leader of Iran said that this was against Shia Islam, and so the U.S. and Israel killed him, the one that said no nuclear weapons. Iran and the UN had negotiated a complete inspection regime for Iran back in 2015, but Netanyahu and Trump ripped up that agreement in 2018, the so-called Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Mm-hmm. This is specifically about hegemony. And of course, it puts Asia, India, China, Indonesia, the rest of Southeast Asia deeply in crisis. Israel has caused a sharp economic crisis in Asia now, and the crisis will get worse unless the countries of the world stand up and tell the United States and Israel, stop this war, stop your conquest, go back to peace, live by the United Nations. Otherwise, India, China, and others are going to pay a very high price. The U.S. has no strategy. Trump, we know from all experience, is delusional. He's psychologically unstable. He can't keep agreements. He does not have a long-term strategy. Look at how he dealt with India during the past year. Look at how he dealt with the tariff issue when he had no legal authority to do this. He operates by bullying and by grand pronouncements that have no justification. He said yesterday, don't worry about oil and gas. The U.S. will escort tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. Almost everybody with any knowledge of this begs to differ. There is, of course, in the U.S., the biggest industry of all. That is public relations, also known as propaganda. So we shouldn't listen to Trump about any of this. We shouldn't listen to Netanyahu about any of this. Remember how Trump was going to end the Ukraine war with one phone call? Remember how the Gaza war was going to end quickly? Remember, by the way, how the Syrian government was going to be overthrown in 2011, or about how Afghanistan was going to become a U.S.-led democracy, or about how Iraq would become a stable country. They used to say the same thing in my youth about Vietnam. It's just a short period away. These people are propagandists. They are not telling any serious analysis. This war will not end in 4 weeks. This war will create an economic catastrophe unless the BRICS countries say to the United States and Israel, you've got to stop. You have no right to ruin the whole world economy. Well, there's a famous adage of Henry Kissinger, who said that to be an enemy of the United States is dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. And this reality appears over and over again. I was just in the Gulf region a few weeks ago. I met with the leaders across the Gulf region. They all thought the U.S. is their security. This is not the case. The U.S. is their insecurity. The U.S. is like a magnet drawing the bombs and the drones right to their countries. If there had been peace based on the logic of peace across the neighborhood, they would be safe. But instead, Israel and the United States want control. Control does not bring security. So these countries are going to suffer badly. They have no potential for kinetic action against Iran. That's not even a thinkable proposition. Their oil fields, their port facilities, their refineries, their tankers are sitting ducks for thousands of drones that can come. There are not the anti-missile systems in number that can protect these assets. The only way to protect these assets is for the United States and Israel to stop their aggression. Other than that, there will be no protection for these countries in the Gulf. There is a need for peace. There is a need for the rule of law. There is a need for the end of this aggression. There's a need for Israel to live within its own borders, which are the borders of the 4th of June, 1967, and to let the Palestinians live within their borders. So there's a need for a completely different approach. The United States will not put boots on the ground because the American people are completely against what is happening right now. This is done by the CIA, by the Pentagon, by Trump. This is not done by the American people. They're completely against this. So their idea of boots on the ground is that they'll pay the Kurds or other mercenaries to do this. This is all disastrous, delusional thinking. The war could end today by Israel and the United States ending their aggression. That is the way this war will end. It requires the voices of India and China and Brazil and Russia and the other BRICS countries, which represent half the world population, to say the truth to the United States and to Israel. You must stop this aggression. Trump will lose the midterm elections, period. He is unpopular, and his approval ratings are falling, and they will continue to plummet. He lied to the American people. He lied to his base. He lied about the tariffs. He lied about the economy. So his approval is very low and falling. He will lose. I hope that the ballots are honestly counted. If they are, there will be an outcome that will control what right now is executive rule, not constitutional rule. The U.S. cannot keep the Straits of Strait of Hormuz open, that is technically, militarily not possible, that Israel's bombing operations and U.S. bombing operations will not do that. There will not be American boots on the ground, so that's also not going to happen. So if the war continues, that's the choice, by the way, of Israel and the United States. But if they continue the war, then two things will happen. One, the Strait of Hormuz effectively will remain closed. And second, the oil physical assets in the Gulf region will be destroyed one by one. The refineries, the oil fields, the port facilities, the LNG facilities, and so forth. So we will have a major global crisis. The price of oil, if that happens, will soar well above $100 a barrel. The markets have not assumed that this is the case because they are listening to Trump saying that this will be over in a short period of time. If that's the case, then yes, oil prices will remain only modestly increased. But if it is, as is likely, this continues because the U.S. and Israel continue their aggression, the oil prices will soar well above $100. There will be a major global economic crisis. Asia and Europe will pay the highest costs for that crisis because they are dependent on imports from the Middle East. And both Europe and Asia will suffer enormously. Everyone will suffer, but India, Indonesia, China, the rest of Southeast Asia will pay a very heavy price. We know from the oil shocks of the 1970s, in 1973, 74, and in 1979, 1980, that when there was a sharp, rather sudden, significant reduction of world oil supplies, the entire world went into economic crisis. I actually did my PhD dissertation 46 years ago on that topic. We are back to that scenario where there will be a contraction of trade, of investment. There will be increased political instability in many countries if this war continues. That's not a foregone conclusion. There are two ways the war could end. One way is that the way that Israel and the United States claim, which is that they will defeat Iran. Most every military analyst disputes this, that the war will not end that way. How can a war end that way with a few weeks of bombing? Look at the Ukraine war. There's been bombing for 4 years. The war continues. Without boots on the ground, and there will not be U.S. boots on the ground, the war will continue. So ending the war by victory by the U.S. and Israel is extraordinarily unlikely. The other way that the war could end is that the world's governments tell the truth to the U.S. and Israel, which is you must stop this now. That is highly plausible. Most countries don't want to do it. They're scared of Donald Trump. They shouldn't be. It's a lot of bluff and bluster. The fact of the matter is that he cannot command India or China or Russia or other countries the way he thinks he can. So if they stand up together and say, end the war, it actually will end. But if neither of those happens and all of this continues, then the economic costs will be enormous for India, for most of Asia, for Europe, actually also for the United States. Even though the U.S. is basically energy balanced, it will still have very significant negative consequences. I don't count India as a middle power. I count it as a great power. I don't count Russia as a middle power. I count it as a great power. China is a great power. What we need is the major powers to say to the United States and Israel, you've done something absolutely wrong, absolutely aggressive, illegal, delusional. You can quote me. They can quote me. It makes no sense. It wrecks the whole world economy. That will get this to stop. As a bully, Trump counts on everyone remaining silent or even falling into line. But countries are not having it. You know, Spain, the prime minister of Spain, or president of Spain, as he's also called, Pedro Sanchez, stood up and said, this is illegal and reckless. We won't do it. And the U.S. can't use our bases. Trump then threatened him. And you know what he did? He said, we're not listening to your threats. They're empty threats. Then other countries in Europe are saying, whoa, we can do the same thing. We need truth-telling right now. This started with Israeli grotesque delusions. This includes U.S. delusions. The world needs to say we don't want Israel to rule the Middle East. We don't want the U.S. to rule the world. We want actually a rules-based system under the UN Charter. That's the theme of the BRICS countries. We don't accept this kind of lawlessness. We don't accept Israel and the U.S. killing religious leaders and heads of state in the middle of negotiations. The recklessness of this is profound. There's no point in being silent about the recklessness of it, because that will prolong the agony, not end the agony. Calling out what is an absolutely illegal, destructive, and doomed to fail effort is what's most important right now.